going to show you how to use your spit shading technique to spit shade a traditional flash style rose tattoo. So this is the example of what it will look like when we're finished. So what I'm going to do to get to that point is, yesterday you did the rose drawing worksheet where you learned lots of different ways of drawing roses. You need to choose your favorite one, outline it in Sharpie, and then get a piece of watercolor paper. Here, I'll get a blank one. And use the window. You can kind of see it once it's outlined in Sharpie, but it helps if you use the window or the light table and trace your rose onto the watercolor paper. It's probably wise to do it in pencil first, then the Sharpie, in case you mess up, okay? All right, so there's that. So then this is what you'll have on your practice paper. Then we're gonna practice our spit shading on our rose. Okay, so you wanna put your shadows where you think there's going to be shadows. So let's talk about that. Like this petal right here is behind this petal. So I'm gonna wanna put a little shadow right there to show that it's behind that one. You want your shadows to be on the inside edges of the rose, okay? There's not gonna be shadows on the outside petals. A rose normally opens up like this. So your shadows are gonna be in all the creases and crevices, okay? So just like we practiced the other day, I'm gonna put a little bit of water in my black, just get it activated, but I don't want too much or I'm not gonna have a concentrated black. I'm gonna have gray. Okay, so when I have my brush all saturated, I feel like that's a little too watery. So I'm gonna rinse, tap, dry it out. I don't want any extra water. I'm gonna swirl that pigment so it picks up a little more paint and less water. There we go, that's a lot more saturated and dry. Okay, so I'm gonna put in my little black line where I want a shadow. And then I have my water brush, tap, tap, and I'll get the brush away. And then I just work that line and bring that shadow over. You can decide how far you want the shadow. If you just want it to blend a little bit, that's fine. If you want it to blend more, I'm gonna wash out my brush and drag it out a little bit more. Okay, a lot of people get really picky with this step. You don't have to get picky, okay? It looks good. Mostly, if you're staying within your lines, that's what looks good. Okay, so now I'm gonna do another shadow. Maybe right here. You can even make your petals look like they have creases in them if you wanna add your shadow kind of like that. I don't have enough water on there. So it's all about controlling how much water you have on the brush. If you lose control and things just get messy and crazy, you have too much water on your brush. You need to tap it out more and dry it out more on your paper towel. If things are really dry and they're not moving at all, like you just can't get your black to move, then you don't have enough water. So you need to stop drying it out so much. Okay. So anywhere that's underneath something else, that's where you want a shadow. So like even this stem is underneath those petals, so I want a shadow there and blend it. Okay, one other technique I want to show you in this video, so you can always go back if something didn't blend. I'm going to reblend that, is scrubbing. So watercolor can kind of be erased. So say I'm painting and I'm doing my shadow like right here and I get outside of the line a little bit. Ah! Oh no, it's ruined forever. It's not ruined forever. Your brush can work kind of as an eraser. So I'm gonna choose my black handled brush. These are pretty stiff. You want a real stiff brush, okay? You want it wet but not super wet. And just work it over. And it's literally called scrubbing because you're literally kind of scrubbing with your brush to clean it and to push your pigment back where it was supposed to go. So get back in there. Okay, and maybe you can't get it completely scrubbed out, but it looks way better than it did before. Isn't that cool? It's like an eraser. So that's called scrubbing, and it's basically erasing and fixing anything. Okay, the other technique I want to point out that I've been doing this whole time is I've been turning my paper. That's because then I can get cleaner edges. So I'll show you how it would be awkward if I weren't to turn my paper. I'm just going to blend this. One thing about the spit shading is it's better to pull it away from you. So if we look at this one, we were always using our right hand. If you're left-handed, you might be going this way, okay? But since I'm right-handed, I'm pulling the pigment away from myself. It's much harder to go the opposite way, okay? So say for this petal right here, look how awkward this is if I want to try and put my shadow here. See how I have to turn my hand so awkwardly? Okay, so that's why I'm turning my paper a lot. And it's going to be a whole lot harder to blend while pushing that way than pulling it towards my dominant hand. Okay, so that's why I advise always turning your paper so that it's not awkward. Okay, look, I've got a mistake there. Just going to scrub it out. Okay, one thing to note about the watercolor is that if you do, see how I'm jumping around to things that aren't really touching each other? If you do a section right next to a wet section, they're going to bleed into each other. So this isn't wet anymore, but if I did this one and then this one right after, they would end up bleeding together because they're both wet. So you want to jump around to different areas so they can dry while you're working. So like at this point I could come over here and then over there and then over there. So you want to jump around so you don't have two wet sections right next to each other. Okay, so that's it for, what I would do is I would finish my shading. I'm not done with this yet, but I'd finish my black shading on these areas.